Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us live once again this Friday morning, Eastern Standard Time. And of course, if you're catching us on our recast on Wednesdays, 11:30 a.m., either from Sydney, Australian time or London, UK time, thank you so much for always catching us afterwards as we see everyone come online from the variety of places. We broadcast to 209 countries, translate into 11 languages, and also simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, our TV channel, our TV station, Hospitality Channel on smart TVs. You can catch us on the Google TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, Roku TV, Samsung, LG, whatever. Any smart TV can find us. And of course, our app, Apple iOS and Google Play, Android, just look for Hospitality Channel and you will find us there. It is our TV channel's site. So with that, now that you know wherever else to find us, which you would have already found since you were listening to me, this you can share with everybody else. Let's dive into some of this as we get, yes. I'm always amazed, as I keep saying, of the timetables around the world that watch us live at amazingly strange times locally for them, but convenient time for us for broadcasting in Eastern Standard Time. So here we are going into the midstream of March. Here we are with global effects on travel and things that are happening that are influencing people's decision processes, and also whether it's a chilling effect and the sense of cost. There is direct impacts that are happening globally, domestically to the U.S. I'll address directly, which is the gas prices escalating as fast as they are, is changing the scope and the depth of what would we consider drive market travel for anyone, as to the distance willing to be traveled or the cost associated with those traveling. Drive market travel isn't restricted to budget consciousness as much, but even those that have the money to spend towards what they're doing, it does change the scope of the finances calculated for the travel expenses for spring break that are coming up right now. Right now, in the domestic U.S., a college spring break is not wrapping up, but in its majority swing, followed by the traditional high school, middle school, elementaries, middle, and what have you, that are rolling through for the rest of this month. So you're getting a transition of demographics from the younger teens, the older teens, low 20s, college traveler, looking for what they're looking for, to now the younger families or family metrics. And there is a blend that's come out in the past 2 years. This year should be doing the same thing. And that is the mixed generational travel as well, where now spring break travel for the young kids getting out of school is just not with their parents, but the grandparents are being involved in it as well. So that there's a multi-generational travel, which is changing the scope of what they're looking at and doing. That's a little bit of a synopsis of what's going on. That is not our topic of the day. The topic of today is a little bit more specific to how all of this works for people these days. We try not to be affixated on the magic word of AI these days, constantly referring to its influence in this aspect, but there is a component to this that is growing in its use, growing in its value, and growing in its impact to us, and that is microagents, or what I'm calling microagents, or others call it too, for that matter, which is the easier and easier way for people to begin to use AI as an augmented value. Now, there are tools out there that are being presented by platforms. Expedia offers them, hotels offer them. It's like they're AI assistants to help you discover your travel choices. And they keep it pretty much in engagement relationship with the AI to help you discover what accommodation options there are, what travel options or transportation options are to get to your destination, your expenses associated with rent-a-car, if that's a necessary component, and also an awareness of what's going on in that destination market for you to consider. It's not customized to you in as much as it is what you ask is what you get. It's an interactive interface that's more towards the biasness of what data they have, and obviously the properties or businesses that are paying more towards these platforms or getting more recognition in the responses from the AI interaction, in the sense that they're going to be referred to more often or have more complete information, either which way you want to look at it, whether it's being forced or just because they have more information about them. Either which way, there is this concern that there is not complete information that's available. Now, that being said, if you're not doing well for yourself on the data supplied for generative AI discoveries, you're self-inflicting the wound yourself as to not showing up as well as you should and could be in that space. That's all the predication to our topic today, which is who's really looking for your business, your hotel, your resort, your restaurant. Say hello to the microagent. Again, what we're finding now is an evolution of discovery. Going back to what we used to do and still do, a largest majority still process this the same way. You do a discovery with search engine results. You begin to inquire about destinations. You begin to inquire about aspects of the destination. That is what we in the advertising side of it would refer as non-branded activity. It's not looking for your name of your business yet. It's not looking for your hotel or your restaurant yet, but it is asking about things that your hotel or restaurant could be included in with the results, depending upon how well you structure your content to be discoverable and usable for all the tools, search engines in particular for this discussion. Use it. And that's done by their bots going onto your website and crawling your website and determining all the content that you have that's relevant for them to understand, and then ranking that against other sources of similar content and seeing whether or not they use your content or another's content for the results that they provide in the search engine, and whether you show up in those answers. We know that there is, of course, the AI overview, which is satisfying more and more people as to answering their questions. So they get to answer a variety of looser, easier questions that gives them some awareness, and then they get delved deeper from those responses. There's the answer box, which is the content that's used to answer varied questions that are related to what you at first ask in the search engine result. And then you have the paid placements of your presence for those kind of result values. That's the non-branded campaigns that you run that push you into that third category of space. Keeping in mind you're still close enough to the content that they're looking for, showing up a meta search on the right-hand side rail of indicating your property's value to what they might be considering looking at. And then, of course, below that is organic, which more and more people are finding that most of the early organic or top organic results are integrated in the AI-generated answer and also hyperlinked in the answer as well. So it's turning into a lost scroll, so to speak. Most people don't go that far anymore because it just reaffirms what you saw at the top of the page. Now, that's search engine results. That's going through the more traditional ways we said of discovering content and where you are, who you are. And as I mentioned before, the non-branded is usually your first discovery process. And then as they become more familiar with the destination because of continued interest, they begin to develop their questions towards specific things that came through those results. Your business may be one at that point where they want to look at you in particular and see what it is you say about yourself or what's said about you with the reviews and content that's being pulled up. And then from that, they determine if you're still in the queue of interest in comparison to who else they're comparing you to. And then from that, that's when you usually begin to start putting your brand campaigns in, where you want to identify strongly for, as they continue their search results, that you are aware of their interest in the market and you are aware of the fact that you want to be represented well. So you're going to start showing from your non-branded campaigns awareness where your ads show up to now branded awareness that if you're looking for me, I want you to come to me. I want you to understand what I have to offer from my website and not what others may be saying or contributing about me. So that's a microcosm of how we traditionally do search engine result marketing for Google in particular. Bing works the same way. What you're finding now with that AI summary on the top of it and so forth, is generative AI is having more and more of an influence on whether you get into the discussion early, late, or not at all. If your content is good and is relevant to a broad array of things that are of interest to your destination and your value relationship with them, and you're good at having described what you are, your core NAP information, what have you, your identity, your branded identity, then you are in that discussion from the onset. And in that perpetuity, there's an initial interest in you because you show up well with the answers being given from AI. That is still a search engine relationship that's going on. Now, at that point, they could be using chat search engines, smart search engines like Comet and what have you that are doing that and potentially more, as we discussed in show 542, I think it was, about the new generative search engines that allow for you asking it to do something and it'll continue to do it after you've asked the first question. Consider the search pages, once you've asked the question, that's the result. There's no further activity that the search page is doing for you until you ask the next question. Search engines that are with generative AI have the ability to continue with the process if you guide it that way, where you tell the generative AI search engines, like, look, I want you to look for flights from here to there for these dates, and I want you to keep track and send me notifications should the prices you first find go down to this level, or the prices change, or which is the best price every day. You tell it what to do, and it creates a function. That function continues on until you tell it to stop. That's a different projection towards search engine results using search engines. That's saying, instead of just answering a simple question and getting a multitude of answers, hopefully one that works, you're asking for something to be done to give you answers, and there's perpetuity to the value of the answers that continue with you. That leads to where we are finally at for our topic today, which is microagents. Now, there's been a lot of terms going around about agents or agentics and creating things that you can use for yourself. And the usual dismissal of this right now is that it's for geekheads and gearheads that know how to do this or think about how they want to create it. And there's a lot of validation. There's a lot of validity to that. There's the earlier front edge people or the bleeding edge people have been doing this, which is why it's turned into more of a mainstream conversation, because they realized early on that there was platforms being developed that you could not know how to do all the coding yourself, but rather know what it is that you want and allow and create, have the AI do the coding needed to do what you're asking it to do. Okay. And that has coined a phrase called vibe coding. And the reason why it's a vibe is that it's an overused word right now, which is driving me nuts, but I'm going to refer to the definition in this context, is that it's the feel of what it is that you're doing based on the context you want to do it for, the feel of it, the gist of it, the intent. They call it vibing, the vibe. And so when you work with these platforms, we're going to discuss it today a little bit, you're guiding through dialogue this platform to build what you want it to do. And from that, it now produces the results or does the things you want it to do or that you're building it for. You're making your own app. Now, there's lots of variations to how this gets done. Let's kind of go through some of the terms of this. So vibe coding. I'm going to read off some things because I think it's more precise than me than trying to elaborate on. Vibe coding is the method where all AI writes the code completely and the user accepts or iterates on based on natural language feedback. I'm literally saying, no, I want you to do this, change this color, typing those words kind of thing, okay? Often without looking at the underlying code. I'm not looking at the code to go in and change in the code. I want it now to be red instead of blue, so I have to go into the line item that tells it blue and change it to say tell it red. Don't need to do that. I just have to tell this platform I want to change the color, and it creates the code change in order to do that. Agentic coding is the underlying technology where AI agents independently design, develop, test, and iterate on software, acting as the engine for vibe coding. These are the platforms that you're doing this stuff on. That's agentic coding. You're telling a platform to do these things. Microagents, the term we're referring to, small, focused, autonomous agents or digital workers designed to handle specific tasks, i.e. Updating your posts or writing something for you, okay? Sending a Slack message for you within a larger application. They function within something else. That's a microagent. This one's kind of fun. It's called VAPS, V-A-A-P-S. This one I really actually didn't know much about. I had to look this up and understand what they're saying, but it makes perfect sense. Vibe coding agentic apps. An emerging trend where front ends are generated via vibe coding tools, one of which I use, Lovable, and connected to back-end automations, which is another tool I use called N8N. These are different things. Prosumer vibe coding. The use of AI agents to create customized internet tools like dashboards and databases for users who are not professional developers. So if you're ever familiar with the Google's tool called the Looker Studio, they absorbed it, they bought it. It was called Looker, now it's Looker Studio for Google. Anyways, this is one of those platforms as an example that connects to your Google Analytics account and allows you to create reports, dashboards that can work with the data that's saying, I want you to take this data source and I want it to look like this, and I want it to be in a column, or I want a spaghetti chart, or I want a pie chart. That's what those prosumer vibe coding terminology things do, is that they're creating those kind of interfaces, interactions. These are the kind of the key designations. Okay, so vibe coding is literally the method of going onto a platform like that does agentic coding, that goes over and says, okay, I want to talk to this. And that platform is like a Lovable or Studio 44. There are others that, Windsurfer and so forth, that you go in and you interface with them by communicating, typing exactly what you're wanting to do as it builds it for you. And then it shows you a display function of what it's doing. And you either like it, don't like it, change what you want to change, whatever have you. You're creating this environment. I'll give you an example of one that's specifically to Google as to how kind of these things work. So there is a platform that I truly enjoy called Google Notebook LM and LLM, excuse me. And what this does is, instead of having like a ChatGPT or Perplexity or something where you have these massive sources that it draws from, all the things that it has searched for and uses for it, you're defining with Google Notebook only the data you want it to use. So you have the AI capability focused only on what you want it to look at. Unless you say to look at outside sources, it's only looking at the data. Those are PDFs and spreadsheets and links to websites and videos or anything else you want it to look at. And you put it together, and then you ask you tell it what you want to do with that data. It's a case in point for travel. As with anything, when I travel or when I'm looking at, I use Google Maps as my deferred place to go to. And as I find and discover places that I find on social media or on websites or discovery through search and so forth, I find out, I go to the maps and I see where they're located in relationship to where I'm planning on going. And I'll put it into my Google Maps as a saved one. And I'll try to put a little name of like, this was a cool restaurant, or this was a neat hotel I'm interested in, or whatever. Or this is a neat museum. And that's in my Google Maps. So I give Google Notebook access to, I pull the files from my Google Maps of all this stuff and put it into Google Sheets, and I put it off to the side. And it's not hard to do. But it, again, to those that say this is being used by more front edge people, it is still now, because these are the things you need to be comfortable doing by putting it in Google Sheets. So it's a bit of a spreadsheet form of all the data that it has about the places I was interested. I also have all my itinerary in another spreadsheet as to what day I'm doing where and so forth and so on. Anyway, those things, plus maybe a few websites that I thought were good sources of information about particular destinations and what have you, I'll go into this notebook. And then I go over and start saying, hey, based on my itinerary, what are some, and the events and things, I put event calendar in there and stuff. Based on the events that you had that's here and my locations, what are some things I should schedule for, and how much time will I need, and what will it take for me to get there? And all of a sudden, and then I would tell it's like, and now make that a Google Maps for me and send it to my Gmail account. I'll ask it for things like highlights, the reason why I like it, icon for it or something, make it a walking tour, whatever variation I want to it. And what it'll do, it will do exactly that. It'll look at everything it knows about what I gave it, and it'll put all that together for me, and it sends it to me as a map to my phone or to my account, and I open it up on my phone. And now I have what I wanted for what I was interested in without having to do all the rediscoveries and all the reassignments and figuring out, well, that's where the restaurant I'm interested in, but is it easier to get to that one, harder to get that one? Does it fit into the schedule I have that day? It literally, depending on what I'm asking it to do, we'll figure that all out, knowing that I have to take a train or a bus or whatever modality I have to get, and it has to get added in. And you have to tell it sometimes, add an extra 15 minutes to walk from the train to whatever, because it's going to look at schedules and say, oh, you landed at 11 o'clock. The 11:05 train leaves. Unfortunately, it's, down 2 escalators and over 2 buildings. You're not going to make it in the 5 minutes. So adjust for the distances between, but you begin to understand what you're asking for it to do. Next thing you know, you have this micro agent that's doing what you need done without you having to do it. Now that's a first person function that I've had it do, and it does it well. There are other ways that these micro agents, knowing more about what you're interested in, knowing more that you tell it that you're wanting to look for, can begin to do all of this lifting that you normally have to associate with travel planning. The discovery process. I like these kind of restaurants. I like this kind of food. I like budgets that are this much money. Tell me how long does it take when in times past, and it's still times current for a lot of people, that you're looking at a destination and you see the restaurants that are in the area, and you may draw a little line from the hotel out, the old days where you just drew a straight line as to distance and say, okay, this is within a mile. Okay. Easy walk, fast, so forth and so on. This is within 2 miles or 3 miles or whatever. So it's within range for me to leave the hotel because I have my schedule that is in my head that I know, and I can go to these places. So what's available in this area that I could go to knowing I have short windows of time because I'm on a business trip or something. And then you go to the restaurant and you have to look, go to the website for the restaurant, look at the menu, see what they have. Often they don't show the prices. Often the menu's rough, PDFs or whatever. Restaurant websites are some of the worst still to try to even catch up to things. And then you have to look at hours of operation. Is it open when I'm doing it? And you have to go through this process. And even then, there's no certainty to it. There's times I've gone to a restaurant, it's closed. Like it's in not open at all. It just closed. And nobody updated the Google Maps for it to be that way. And there's been no reviews to tell you that it is closed. So unknown that it is closed. Google does its best to try to keep up with that stuff, but to scale, there are gaps. Anyways, all of that used to be manual. Now I can have a micro agent, okay, go look, know what to look for, the types of food, what's it known for, what's the best dish that it's known for, what are the things I shouldn't miss about these places, which restaurants have been in diners, drive-ins, and dives that are within a distance that I might be able to enjoy. Is it even in my interest to go to it? You can define all of these things, and your micro agent will go out and do the heavy lifting. It'll look and check. And yes, it has the same error problems of if it doesn't see that the restaurant's closed, it might be closed. But once you've culled down all of the possible choices to the ones that are related to what you're interested in, this is the human interaction. You can go in and maybe even ask the hotel, hey, look, there's a barbecue place that's 3 blocks away from me that's known for this, this, and this, blah, 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 blah. Is that still open? Localize it. If you're really worried about those things and have good reason to be, then there's ways to validate it from the human side that all that information is correct. Also, too, as with anything AI, you have to worry about hallucinations. And that is where the AI knows what you're looking for and wants to find it to the point where it implies what you're looking for on something that may not be exactly matching or make it up. And you have to make sure that these places are real. You hear it in the news sometimes. Somebody goes to this amazing theme park that literally doesn't exist, or a village that's supposed to be this quaint medieval recreation that's not. It's a farm with a hut on it. So all of this still needs, the reality check of a human going in and making sure that all of these things that have been brought together in fact exist and in fact are what you expect them to be and want them to be. So there's still the human interaction. Remember, AI is best served, from our show 2 weeks ago, as an assistant, not as the lead or autonomous, okay? You do these things to give you focus and bringing it down to a reasonable, usable interface of things that you want to check and confirm with. Now, this isn't having agents go out and book your rooms for you yet, but they can go out and find rooms for you. That you only want rooms that are available that have 2 beds, your rooms that are only available that have ADA compliance, rooms that are only available that have refrigerators, rooms that only have ocean views, rooms that only have pool views, rooms that are known to be quiet, or rooms that are known to be safe. These all go then to hotels that have that content about those things so that those results come back from the agent going and looking for them. You can give it price qualifiers. You can do all of the things that you do for yourself when looking and discovering that usually sit in your head while you're search engineering it, okay? And seeing, well, that's a really great restaurant, but woo, look at them prices. No, thank you. I'd love to go, but don't want to pay the entire vacation amount on that experience. Same thing can be done when you're working with micro agents. Now, how does this all relate to us as marketers? We want to be in this conversation. We want to be discovered for what we stand for, what we are, for what the micro agents are looking for from these people that are beginning to use them. Now, here's the part to consider. For those that are building their own micro agents, using things, the tools and so forth, like the vapes, where you're taking a Lovable that creates the interface of the app, and then you're connecting it to a platform for automation that uses multiple agents like N8N that expand the usage factor of this. And I'll explain a little bit of that in just a bit. Those are being built and then being put into the market, saying, hey, here is an agent that you can buy or pay for some monetization profile for it that can be used to do these things for you. They're coming into the market. They're seeing more and more of them. From us on the other side, operating the properties and so forth, we're seeing now vendors coming in and saying, we can do this for you via your website. So we're not out there, a lot of them also offer the ability to be exposed to generative AI discovery, but what they're mainly focusing on now is saying, look, give us all of your content and access to all of your content and access to your booking engine and all of its content. And we'll create an interactive bot that resides with us, red flag. And your user or your interested user, yet to be guessed, can interact with us that as they describe what they need, we pull from your data and show them only the things that they're most interested in. Some of them are expansive. Some of them will actually change and create a dynamic page behind the bot on your website to reflect what the results are that you're dialoguing with. Others of it, where they stay contained within that chat pop that comes from the lower right-hand corner, that's where you have it located, that have all the interactions saying that, well, these are the rooms that meet your criteria that would be of interest, or this is the things that you should schedule for, or these are the dates you're coming, these are the events based on your things that you're interested in doing, or this is what's going on, what are you interested in? And then it goes through that process, and then it tethers it to maybe an offer or promotion you're connected to with that event or what have you. It's incredibly helpful, but the big red flag I keep waving a hand on is that you're not running that content. That content is being run for you on their agent with all of your data. So in a way, you are creating now a new intermediary that is going to run what you are on their platform on your website as you. And should that separation of that relationship go apart, they can continue to do that about you, but not for you anymore. They can become that OTA, new generation OTA, that can do it for your hotel, other hotels, and so forth, that do or don't have a relationship with them, because they are now tethered to all of your content. And even if you resolve not to continue, they can still find and discover the variant content from what you initially gave them. And when it comes to the booking engine connection, and you don't want them to have that accessibility anymore, no problem. There are affiliate programs like Hotels.com, like APIs and so forth, that can simply get source of that data somewhere else. And now all of a sudden you're competing with somebody that knows as much, if not more, about you than you can present on a website that no longer has that capable interface. So be very careful how this is growing into our industry, because it is very easy for somebody to truly, you've heard it in security for people and personality, biometrics and so forth, your fingerprints, your facial recognition and so forth, and people stealing people's identities. That's kind of what this is on a business scale. These people can steal your identity, and your identity is your content, and emulate what you are outside of you controlling it. So be mindful of the relationships of these things that are coming to market, that are in market, that are going around and being offered, because you have to strike a balance contractually with them as to the complete ownership of the data, the complete control of the data, and the usability of the data during and post relationship for the contract. Very specific, just like with OTA contracts. You have to make sure you negotiate last room availability, free selling, so forth and so on, and control of distribution of inventory to outside third-party sources. Those all have to be contractually defined and limited, so that the contract that's supposedly to your benefit of improving your marketing capabilities isn't used against you by diluting your ability to rate strategize and rate parity, because they're dumping their low-rated margin business off to third parties that are competing directly with you at a lower rate, your rate, because you didn't stipulate to the OTA, don't do that, or that this is a penalty should you be caught doing that. That's another topic which we've discussed, but we will be bringing back up in time when it comes to contract negotiations. Usually summertime is usually when the RFPs go out for contract renegotiations. We'll have that conversation over the summer again. So anyways, so this vibe coding that's going on right now is in the nascent stages of people individually creating things that create solutions for them. More and more service platforms are coming up pre-canned to do a lot of these things. We're seeing other variations to it too, IAM, where it's also creating great local guides. It's aggregating a lot of the data from a destination and providing an interactive resource that says, hey, look, rather than always having to hire a walking tour guide or relying solely on the hotel's interpretation of the data they want you to know, or this museum's complete information about it, we're going to go in and encapsulate all of the destination marketing in an interactive agent so that you can walk around. And if you see a feature, you can hold your phone up and through Google Lens, it's going to tell you what it is. We're going to have a database about it, and what we're missing, we're going to pull from Google anyway. And I'm going to tell you all about the stuff you're looking at. So now you have a never not miss FOMO experience at a destination via our help. And all you have to do is buy the app or get the free app that gives you limited taste of how good it could be, and then pay for the in-app value of it to have the ability to do it at a certain destination. Those are also coming on and are in market right now. These things happening. You're getting more interactive AI engagement where you're getting more of a tour with AI agents talking with you. These are things, these are more of the prosumer vibe coding things that are being built that's going to market, and they're making it affordable and valuable. I may not be in this destination again, so I don't want to miss anything that I should have seen while I was there. So let me get some help with something that's going to tell me all the things that I should know about what I'm doing in that market and make it as helpful as possible. That's a real thing that's happening and growing right now. In the earlier stages of the discovery and decision making, there is vibe coding that's going on, microagents that are being built with agentic coding, okay? That is creating more substantive discovery sources, things that based on what you're asking for, it's discovering for you only those things in the context of what you're interested in, prices, destination, distances, whatever, so that you're not spending so much time and so many rabbit holes, squirrel, you find one thing, the next thing you know, you're off on this tangent on Amazon, where it gives you a more crucibled amount of content that is specific to your interests. So now instead of having to worry about discovering from everything, you're only having to reaffirm what you're truly interested in based on what was discovered for you. This is where this agentic microagent value begins to come in. Now, I mentioned there's platforms like Lovable where you're chatting and talking to develop an app that you want to function and do something for. And I talked about search engines with generative AI bots behind them like Comet and what have you. And Atlas. Atlas is ChatGPT, Comet is Perplexity. Sorry, not off the top of my head, but either or for both of them. If you haven't seen them, they're search engines that use this and the capability of doing the continuous discovery that you want them to do. So going to that continuous discovery, functionality, probability, so forth, each of these agents, you create a function for them. The more fragmentedly small and specific that you create a microagent to do something, the more you want it combined with other microagents that also have, hence the name microagents, specific tasks. This agent might be specific to airline travel costs. And through a platform like N8N, where you define the dates, that makes this one microagent for flight costs run. Okay, they're told to look for these dates and flight costs, and that can be defined into brand variations or Delta versus United or whatever, or just prices or from point A to point B. This microagent runs all that. Another microagent might be running accommodations with its own parameters of control. I only want it to be this much money. I only want it to be in these areas. I only want it to be these brands. Whatever that is, that microagent runs that part of it. Another one might be about just the weather. Checking the weather that going forward, if you're skiing or something, that the snow is going to be most probably on those dates and times based on forecasting, what have you. You have a little, and if it's not needed, it doesn't get used. It just gets pinged if it's needed. And this branching out of these microagents are all connected together by platforms like N8N that say, This is the core of what it does. This is the data that it pulls from. These are the functions that operate with that data to give these results at this level. That combination, okay, of doing what the microagents do collectively. Okay, I used to think of it as swarming, but it's asimilar to a lot of each agent does a specific task, much like in our real world, where one person puts the little square peg in the square hole, the next person puts the round peg in the round hole, and the two pieces get together with the third person that puts the car together kind of mentality. It's a progressive factory line of what happens progressively through the process, and each of these agents do something for this. Now, those are usually at this point more related to larger prosumer usages because they are larger in scope of what they're doing. It's not that people don't develop them personally. Aaron Bennett works with me, built a wonderful one, which was very much about not only researching what he was planning on doing and researching all the things that should be done and not be done, but always keeping vigilant on prices, gas prices, local prices between him, his home base and where he was traveling to, hotel rooms and so forth, along with prices of entertainment tickets. And he built all these different microagents to give him control of weather, road conditions. And so he was always aware perpetually if prices went down in something, if a ticket became available for something, if gas prices went up a certain time on his route or what have you, where he needed to get gas. And but he's also a coder. So he didn't have to use his coding, but he understood the methodology of what coding does, progressive, if-then conditional relationship building. So he built this to do these kind of things. You're going to see more of those in very short order. There's a couple already in market. There's more that are coming as people get to realize how to monetize this function capability. Think of it as your user is thinking about coming to your destination. And they've made that designation, and skipping how they've made that designation, they decided that you're the place they're going to go to. Now they need to know all that they need to know about doing that. And if a properly run ad campaign pops up and says, hey, I'm XYZ destination helper with all this stuff, download or go here and pay to use access kind of thing, I will help you through the entire process. Monitor, keep track, find, discover, blah, blah, blah. We just have to go through what you're interested in and da-da-da-da. And next thing you know, I'm off to the races. Think of platforms like Road Tripper, how helpful that is. Now, there's other ones. I just picked on Road Tripper because I like its diversity. You're saying I'm going from here to here. And of course, it needs to know what you're traveling as, and as an RV. If so, what are the conditions of height and so forth and so on. Then it goes through what are you interested in, how far off of your travel path plan are you willing to go, or discover what's there. And then it begins to show you on this path all of the things related to what you said you might be interested in and how far you're willing to venture off from the path, what is to be discovered. Plus, also, it helps with very functional things of don't take this road because the bridges are too low. Take this road because it has better gas prices. Take this road because it's a smoother one. Take this one because it doesn't have tolls. These pieces and components already exist in different forms, but you have manually been able to do this by doing it from all these different platforms. You, right now, as a user, have to do all these things. Now we have platforms like Road Tripper that will do that for you. And it does that, and then you discuss with the family, well, there's the biggest ball of twine over there. Do we want to take a 20-mile detour to go see it? And where are we going to stay on the route? And then having that content available for Road Tripper to know that your place is where they want to say, the camping spot that they want to stay at, or the hotel they want to kind of freshen up in, or whatever it is. These are the modalities of what agents are being used for. We've seen it in website platforms. We still rely upon search engines and website platforms to help us discover these things. But as Agentix is improving and the usability of the Agentix is improving with the vibe coding platforms like Lovable, Replendit, and others, Studio 44, then you're going to be able to customize what you want it to do your own way. And if you're not into that, that's fine. Give it another couple of weeks, and there's going to be enough of those people that have done it that go, everybody wants to use my program after I told them what it did, and I've been sharing it. Well, I should put it on the market or a website as a usable and charge people to use it. And they say, well, if I'm going to do that, I got to make sure I'm in front of the right people because nobody's going to Boise, and I made the app for Boise, so I got to advertise to everybody that's interested in Boise or looks up Boise or And all of a sudden they're selling to an audience because they knew that they has to get in front of those audiences. That's our world. Now, as a wrap up to how does that affect our business as microagents, these agents are going to be doing more of the discovery about us and what we represent than people doing their own search. Not now, but they will be contributing more as time goes on. And we need to be ready to understand that we have to have content that is valuable to those discoveries. If you're referenced in your reviews as having a very safe hotel, you should have that content in more than just the review that was given or the reviews that were given. You need to say and refer to, we were referred to by several reviews that we are a very safe hotel. We have good security or what have you. If you have on scale autism rooms and you have services related to special needs travelers and so forth, make sure you refer to it other than in passing. That content has to be discoverable because agents looking for that under the criteria people that has been given to them is going to discover that because you made it available. Not that they had to find it, but they found it easier because you made it more of a common part of conversation. If you have more greater views of the beach, or that people love the views of the beach or the mountains or the desert, make sure that you refer to the things that are of high value to what people recognize your property for, or what you recognize your property for, and put them in legitimately, truthfully. Because if you don't put the truth in, and there's a lot of feedback going, I saw that they get great desert views. Yeah, they don't. You're looking at their pool, and if you squint, you might see past the building across the way and see the desert on the hill or something. That's going to work against you. You have to, just like with any SEO and content value, it has to be accurate and valid, truthful, all that good stuff. So this ability to begin to accommodate the specifics that microagents will be looking for. Maybe you're referencing usage of weather. Maybe you're referencing usage of the convenience of travel off of the interstate. Maybe you use it in reference to your proximity to the eclectic restaurant nest that you always love being so close to. Refer to and talk about the restaurants that you're tethered to. Refer and comment about the internal transportations of buses or bicycle rentals or scooter rentals or whatever it is. Make sure that your content amplifies the things that make you valuable. Even if they're not better than your competitors, you might be better at it than your competitors. So taking the content and making it a part of more of your general content will allow these agents to best discover the usability of that content in their functions as microagents. So some other things just to consider as a wrap up to our conversation is when you're looking at vibe coding, it's a very human engagement. You as a person is conversing, for lack of a better way of saying, typing in normal language, what you're wanting it to create for you, okay? And it's that conversational guidance, okay? And that creates what's called vibe checking. What it builds, you have a sense of that's what you wanted or didn't want, okay? You have a vibe for it. Agentic coding, okay, is an AI agent. It's autonomous. That's doing what you told it to do on its own. Go check the weather, go check the traffic, go check gas prices, whatever. It's doing that. AI assistant is a human interaction where you're using the answers and queries related to what the AI did. What's the weather like? It goes fetch, okay? Is this a good weekend for weather? Conditional relationship question. It will tell you, no, it's not. Why would it say no, it's not? If it's sunny, it's no, it's not. If it's not snowing, it has to have a relationship with the human interaction as to why. What's the criteria of nice? Okay. That comes from its learning of what you're asking it or why you're asking it or the conditions you've created of what you consider to be what you want. I want a super snowy weekend. Is this a good weekend for it? That creates the criteria of the answer. It's this ability that we're already learning. The public is already learning how to begin to interact better. Remember far enough back, if you could, when search engines first started evolving, you had to use specific words. And as marketers, as long as we marketed to those specific words, we had a chance of showing up depending on how much we spent and who was competing with us and what have you. Then it turned into that longer tail, more words and more words. And we had to create combinations of terms that people were searching for in addition to the keywords so that we could show up with the same relevance. And then it got to intent. Remember when Google did their ability to intend, and that came from the drop down as you're typing in the search bar, it was showing you what it thinks are additional words. So rather than having to type them, you can just click on the remainder of what you were probably going to already type anyway. And it has evolved to all that process. That same process is happening with AI right now as it begins to understand better the intent of what you're doing. By definitions, it's going to get better without having to ask because it already knows from previous, as it learns more of the interaction with you, what you mean by good, what you mean by want, what you mean by Greek food versus Chinese food, because Chinese food is ultra diverse. Is it Cantonese? Is it Mandarin? You've told it what you think Chinese food is, or you've defined it that it doesn't make a difference. Either which way, it knows the context of why you're asking for places that have great Chinese food. This is the discovery of these agents that will continue to infiltrate and expand their value to us as a business on making sure we have what they need to answer reflecting us. So at the beginning of the show, we talked about all the places you can find us. I don't need to reiterate all of that. I do need to remind you that if you want to find this show and all of our previous shows, we do have an I Love Lucy website called hospitalitychannel.tv. You can go back in, look at data broadcast, topic, or hosts, me in this case. It also has all of our radio station, has all of our audio podcasts as well, and radio station broadcasts as well. They're all there. There's a linear programmer and there's an on-demand programmer on the website. You can choose which way you want to watch it. We also have our hospitality radio that is broadcasted internationally in 39 countries on radio stations around the world. That is a linear radio show, radio channel that has 1 o'clock is marketing, 2 o'clock is sales, 3 o'clock. Anyway, it runs for a 12-hour cycle that catches all the time zones before and after, and does have the capability of going back and do replays from the radio station back to the hospitalitychannel.tv. But it is a linear show. We constantly update the new contents associated with it. And if you are a hospitality marketer and wish to join a peer level group, you can join me at hospitalitymarketing.club. We have a peer group you join. We send you a quiz to make sure that you're a current hospitality marketer, at which you get invited in and you can begin to find which group you're most interested in tethering to. And you can hop between, if this week's questions is about analytics, you go and hop into that group and say hi and see what's going on and maybe ask a question or two. If it's into Google advertisement, ad grouping, structure, campaign development, you might pop over there. We have lots of fun diversifications as to content and people participating at different levels of it. So if it's too simple or too basic, there's in most of the categories, there's higher levels of dialogue. Anyways, another option to join. So with that, my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you all next week.